Now he's just got a much more reliable, consistent source of income. And that came through building out this new website and getting clear on that new offer.
Yeah, I think that's so great just to, begin with an end in mind. Sometimes we build a website with the end in mind of building a website. We don't actually have the customer journey as a part of our thought process when we're building that website.
Welcome to the Business Builders Playbook, the show that breaks down the systems and strategies behind predictable revenue growth to win in business. In each episode, we're diving into the proven strategies that separate the winners who scale from the losers who fail. This show is sponsored by BDR.ai, the AI-powered business development platform that automates your outbound prospecting so you can focus in on closing deals instead of chasing leads. Let's get started.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is David Bush and I'm the co-owner of BDR.ai. And today I get a chance to introduce you to a good friend and a partner of ours, Josiah Jones. Josiah has been a rock solid resource for us, and he has just been so valuable to helping us to incorporate so many new strategies and tactics and tools that are advancing us into this next age of AI and using all different new techniques and tactics and resources, SEO. There's so many different things we could talk about, Josiah, but I'm so excited to have you on today. So welcome to the webinar.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, David. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here. And I'm excited to be here with the audience and share whatever insights we have to share.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about your background. I mean, obviously, you've done a lot in the area of web design and strategy and direct response marketing with using really cool tools and technology. But how did you get here?
Yeah, I've been doing website design and internet marketing for the last 15 years. I started off just helping local businesses and expanded from there. Now I help clients all over the world, all over the country. And, really kind of started off as a designer and realized that clients needed more than that. They needed a way to be able to get customers, get leads through the door, maintain those relationships with those leads and turn them into customers. So it started as a designer, and then I evolved into, like you said, learning direct response marketing and really kind of digging my teeth into the marketing side of things.
Yeah, and we've got some great strategies that we're going to share with you all today. So if you have questions, go ahead and submit them in the Q&A, and I'll make sure that I get those questions to Josiah before we wrap today. And if you're watching a recording of it, put it in the comments. We'll make sure that we respond back to the comments and make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. If for some reason you need more detailed questions, you can go to bdr.ai /contact, and you can contact us and we'll get you more resources. So let's jump right into it, Josiah, because there's obviously the whole concept of today's webinar was moving from click to client and understanding that there's, more to it than just having a website that has really good content or really good resources on it. So when you're looking at a business online presence, what's the first thing that you're looking for to determine whether or not they're successful or whether there's a huge opportunity for improvement?
Yeah, great question. So I really like to start by kind of looking at what does the customer's journey look like? What does the audience's journey look like? And so I've actually prepared a quick little infographic for you. Let me see if I can, there's the share screen. And let me share this with you. So this is just an infographic. It's not really a slide, so there's a lot of text here, but essentially it's kind of looks like a funnel, but on its side. And this represents the modern customer journey, where a lot of businesses or a lot of customers, right, they hear about a business and then they have to figure out, okay, well, now I know about it. Can I find them? We're going to go look them up online. And then once they look them up online, they start reviewing them. What's their reputation look like? Do they have positive reviews? All that kind of thing, right? So that is where I start. Awareness, that's kind of the business's job to help customers find out about them, or referrals or word of mouth, stuff like that. But it really starts with findability and reputation. So I look to see, is the business even findable at all online? Are they in the search results? Can you find their website? Do they have a Google business profile if they're a local business? And then do they have reviews and testimonials published on their website or on Google? That's one of the first places that I like to look, because as Marty Neumeier put it in his book, The Brand Gap, Um, a brand isn't what you say it is. A brand is what your customers say it is. And so really starting with the reviews and reputation and what do customers say about you, that's really where I like to look first. And from there, everything kind of goes downstream. There's other things, of course, that I like to look at as well, such as things above the fold, like how clear is the offer, how clear is the headline, is there a call to action, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, as a web designer, I always look at like usability metrics, like is it mobile friendly? Does it load quickly? All those types of things. Because if those aren't dialed in, then everything else downstream will kind of start to suffer.
Yeah. When bring that slide back up if you would, because I'd love for people to just, kind of absorb that in. And so, when those of you that are watching this live or watching a recording, if you were to grade yourself in those 5 areas, like just not being an expert, but you could probably end up giving yourself a grade on a scale of A, B, C, D, F. And you could probably say, man, there's definitely some lost opportunities here. But this is one of the things that Josiah offers, is that he allows you to share with them your website address. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And he'll actually give you an assessment to show you where you could improve. And then you can decide to go out there and improve it on your own, or you can end up taking advantage of some of the techniques and services that he provides. So let's jump into the next question. So what's the difference between a website, landing page, and sales funnel, and why does it even matter? Because this was one of the things that you really helped me to understand, is that the old adage of, I need a website, maybe not so. You may just need a good quality sales funnel or a sales landing page. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference between a website, a landing page, and a sales funnel, it kind of comes down to the difference between breadth, focus, and flow, right? So a website kind of offers a wider breadth. It's kind of like a digital brochure that has multiple pages. Maybe you have multiple services that aren't necessarily connected to one another, multiple products. Maybe you're trying to attract people through the search engine, so you have different blog articles. Maybe you have a really storied history and a rich history about your business. And so you want to have a about page that goes through the history so that people can learn more about your business and where it started and all that, right? So a website really is more around building credibility and letting people browse. And it doesn't, while I always try to include conversion mechanisms and calls to action and things that will help drive people to take the next step, websites are generally more just kind of like a place to browse. I'll just say that. And then landing pages, they have more of a singular focus and generally just a single offer. So whether you've got just a single product for sale or a single service that you're offering or a single promotion or campaign that you've got, usually the point of a landing page is to drive conversions, drive some sort of action, whether that's opting in for a lead magnet or signing up to book a call, to buy a product, something like that. And then a sales funnel is generally a sequence of steps. So it could be like a sequence of landing pages. And I also want to mention that these things aren't necessarily all mutually exclusive, right? You could have a website that has landing pages on it. Or like I said, you have a funnel, which is comprised of landing pages. So there's ways that these things can all fit together. But yeah, the funnel generally starts with like some sort of freebie or low price offer. And then after that, there's an upsell. And then if they take that upsell, maybe there's another upsell or a downsell, right? So it's kind of a sequence of steps that you guide the visitor through, as opposed to just letting them browse on their own like they would a brochure.
So how do you know which one you need first or which one you need right now? Like, where would you direct somebody?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on a few different things, right? So what is the goal of the campaign? Is it to generate awareness, to build an email list, to generate sales or bookings, right? So kind of starting with the goal and then working backwards from there. And then also looking at what is the offer. Do they have a single offer? Is it just one core offer that they're putting out into the market, or do they have a variety of different offers, right? And kind of like I said a moment ago, if they have different offers and they're not necessarily like looped up together, then maybe a website is the right approach. But if their offers all kind of go up an ascension ladder, then maybe a funnel is the right approach. And then from there, also, you might consider, like, how are we driving traffic? Is there paid traffic being generated to this, or are we relying on organic traffic? If it's paid traffic, maybe we're doing a landing page or a funnel. If it's organic traffic, maybe a website, so we can generate search engine optimization metrics and social media metrics and stuff like that. All right. And then lastly, I would also kind of ask, how aware is the buyer? Are they aware of your business and aware of your solution set, or do you need to educate them? Because if you need to educate them, then starting higher up on the funnel, with a landing page or something that kind of gets them into a freebie where they can consume that freebie and then move on, that might be the better option. So there's a few different kind of, it depends type scenarios. But I would always recommend just starting small, testing from there, and then building up and on what works.
Yeah, and typically the way that you work with your clients or prospective clients is that you basically do an assessment as to, what they currently have and then what they really want. And then you identify areas of opportunity in terms of, here's what I would do first and here's what I would do next. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of looking at the website or looking at the online presence, seeing what their goals are, what their audience is, figuring out where they're starting from, if they have anything at all to begin with or not, and then just kind of starting small, so it could just be a landing page. But yeah, really just helping clients kind of determine that through, usually it's like a consultation or a call or something like that.
Yeah, and I know that there's different opportunities when it comes to like structures. So there's like more templated websites that are obviously very inexpensive and it's just kind of plug content and play. When are those appropriate, and when do you really want a super dynamic website that has lots of customization and more rich in features and benefits?
That's a good question. These days there's a lot of really great templates out there. And so if you're starting with a template, generally, there's a lot of designers who are making great templates. And so most templates, they're not so cut and dry that you can only like put your logo here, put your business name here, put the texts that you want here. Like there's a lot more customization than that in modern day templates. And so generally, a lot of businesses could start off with a templated website. It's usually when you're starting to really kind of hone in on your message and your market and your audience, and you really, have some capital behind you to build something custom. That I think is usually when you want to go that route, because it is a bit more of an investment and a bit more of a time investment as well to build a custom website. But templated websites, you can still have a great look without all that time and money. So I don't know. It really kind of depends again on the business and where they're at. But I do think nowadays there's a lot of great templates that you could use to start from, and that would be a great starting point.
Yeah, well, I think that there's probably a lot of people watching this that already have a website and they're thinking, well, I don't need another one. I think that it's doing fine. Could you give us like an example of how you took a website that was in existence, that was maybe a good website, and you transformed it into something that was great, that was actually a really great converting website that brought more trust, more credibility, more leads, or any of the above?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I've got a few examples I can think of, but I don't want to drone on and on. The first one that comes to mind is a wedding venue in Tennessee that I was working with. They have a barn as their venue, and a lot of the clients really liked that. A lot of brides and grooms really liked the barn idea. And then competitors in their area started copying them. They're like, oh, well, we'll build a barn. And so then the original barn was having a hard time standing out from this competition and then this crowd. So we improved their website, made it look a little bit different than the competitors by making it look more professional and just a little bit cleaner. And beyond that wasn't the main thing we did. Beyond that, what we did was we created a lead magnet and we added an AI chatbot. And together with those two tools, we were able to double their conversions with just the exact same traffic that they already had. So we didn't drive any new traffic. We didn't create any ads or do any social media posts or, do any search engine optimization or anything like that. We just kept everything the same and just added a lead magnet and an AI chatbot. And we doubled the conversions that were coming through their website. The lead magnet was responsible for about 61% of new leads opting in. And then the chatbot was responsible for about 43% of new leads opting in. And interestingly enough, the chatbots actually converted at a higher level because they were already invested in sharing more details about their wedding with the chatbot. So rather than the chatbot just saying, hey, yeah, we'd love to help you. What's your name and email? Right at the beginning, it asked a lot of questions, and we trained it to do this, right? We trained it to ask a lot of questions and to kind of dig deep into what the goals or the bride's, like how many people were going to be there, all these different details, right? So we gathered all these details, and then at the end we said, oh, well, thank you so much for sharing all this information. We'd be happy to create a customized proposal for you. In order to do that, we need a human to get in touch with you. Can you please share your contact information? And so that actually resulted in more booked appointments on the back end than the lead magnet did because they were just more invested in the conversation. So that was one example. And then another example, I won't go on with more, but another example was there's a local naturopathic doctor who they had a website that it's a nice website, but they had like inconsistent patients coming through the door. So sometimes, a patient might come in once for the year, and then another patient might come in, 6 times in a row, like for 6 weeks, and then you don't hear from them at all for another 2 years or something like that, right? So during COVID, these doctors, they realized that maybe the telemedicine model would be a good option for them. So we created a new website that got people onto a subscription model instead of this kind of irregular, come as you need to type of model. And so now he has over 350 recurring monthly members on his subscription plan, whereas before he only had, maybe 30 new people a week coming in through the door, something like that, and sometimes they're repeats or whatever. But yeah, now he's just got a much more reliable, consistent source of income. And that came through building out this new website and getting clear on that new offer and helping to, build up a lead magnet and build up a way that leads could understand the severity of their problem so that they wanted to continue down that path.
Yeah, I think that's so great just to, begin with an end in mind. Sometimes we build a website with the end in mind of building a website. We don't actually have the customer journey as a part of our thought process when we're building that website. And again, most people are just kind of trying to do so many different things that they don't spend a lot of time refining them or optimizing them. So you mentioned a couple of different words in there. I want to make sure everybody understands because this was a huge aha moment for us, and you've helped us tremendously with this. But you talked about the word lead magnets, and you've gone through these with me before. So, the lead magnet could be an ebook, it can be a guide, a white paper, a free report, a checklist, a template, workshops, courses, online or recorded or live courses, communities. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. Case studies, assessments, and then, you can go on and on with these things. So how do you determine with somebody what's the right type of lead magnet for them that's going to have the best conversion?
Yeah, good question. So we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but there's really a few different areas that I would focus on, right? It's kind of goes to like top of funnel, mid funnel, and bottom of funnel, right? How aware are their customers, and where are they trying to reach their customers in that stage of awareness? So if customers are unaware, then we would meet them there. So starting with educational resources like checklists and white papers and cheat sheets and stuff like that. If they are a little bit more aware of the solution, then they're mid funnel, and then we could have other types of offers. Like you said, maybe courses or something that can help them kind of get a little bit more through that decision-making process. And then if they're at the bottom of the funnel and they're customers are more aware of the solution and they're just at a point of considering whether or not to buy, then that's when I would say maybe, things like a free consultation or something like that, where you're still offering value, like a free strategy session or something like that, right? Where you're providing one-on-one value as opposed to something a little bit more from a distance. So that's kind of where I would recommend starting. Is it all kind of matters where in the funnel they're at and where in the stages of awareness they're at.
Yeah, you also used the word chatbot. I'm not sure everybody's familiar with that. They probably are when you explain it to them. And I've had some concerns about using chatbots because I didn't want to lose the traffic once they were on the website because the chatbot gave them misinformation or too much information. But you've kind of squelched that fear in me and have really showed me that a lot of people are coming to the table because they've done their research. So whether you let them do your research on your website or whether you let them go out there and use Perplexity or one of these other, AI tools that are going to help them to gather data about the services that you provide and a whole bunch of other competitors. But it's maybe people think that that's a little bit like too far or too expensive. And it's really not that expensive at all. So can you talk a little bit more about AI chatbots and just what your experience has been with them?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, AI chatbots are getting more and more affordable by the day. I think a couple years ago, I was selling them for like $300, $400, $500 or more. Now there's companies out there who are selling them, for $20, $30, $50 a month. It just depends on kind of the level. If you're creating it yourself or if you have someone managing it and creating it for you, that type of thing, right? So the cost of the chatbot itself isn't a lot, but getting them built and getting them maintained and, making sure that it's optimized and stuff, there's a little bit more required there. But yeah, I mean, chatbots are fairly affordable these days. There's a lot of different routes that you can take. There's different tools that you can use to build your own custom chatbots, kind of like creating a custom GPT if you're familiar with Chat GPT and how you can create your own GPTs there. And really, it really comes down to two different things, right? There's the training data, and then there's also so that's like the knowledge base. And then there's the instructions that you give it. So you want to make sure that it has all the information that it needs to answer questions, to provide customer support if you need it for that, to capture leads if you're trying to ask specific questions from a lead, train it on all that information, and then give it the instructions that it needs to follow a certain sequence or to fully do all the things that you want it to do as part of that chatbot, right? And you can also like create a lot of different, like you can add extra tools or add-ons or features to it so that it can be more like an agent and not just a chatbot. So, you can have it go out and research the web, or you can have it create images or write code and all these different things. But generally speaking, I know most people aren't trying to do all that. A simple customer service or lead generation chatbot would be really great for most businesses, I think.
That's great. When it comes down to a lead magnet, when should somebody do a lead magnet and when should they just skip it? Is there a kind of a test that you run them through?
Well, yeah, there's not exactly a test per se, but I do kind of look at a few things, right? So if I would say create a lead magnet if you know who your audience is and you know what problem you're trying to solve. If you're trying to figure that out, then maybe work on figuring that out before you create the lead magnet. And so you could test that, run some ads to some headlines or stuff like that. Or you can just test it on social media and stories and say, which one resonates with you better, whatever. So I would say starting with your audience and knowing what problem you're solving. If you know that, then yeah, create a lead magnet. Also, there's a few other things. Like if you have a front end and a back end, so if you know where your traffic is coming from and you have a way to follow up with those leads, right? So this is actually something that, BDR is great for because it handles both of those things. It handles the front end and the back end. So for example, the front end being like, what's the source of traffic? Do you have an email list? Do you have partners? Are you running ads? Are you getting traffic through social media or social reach? Right. And so that's what BDR does. It does outreach on social media and emails. So that has like a front end traffic source. built in. And then on the back end, you want to make sure that you're nurturing those clients or those leads as well. So do you have a follow-up sequence in place? Are you reaching out to them via email, by direct message? Are you calling them? Do you have some sort of nurture path in place? And again, BDR helps there too, because the software allows for email follow-ups and calls, and I think you guys have calls, and then it also allows for direct messaging as well. So yeah, I mean, that's a great tool for this because it offers both the front end and the back end for the traffic and the nurturing. But to answer your question, when to skip it, I would say if those other things aren't true, right? So if you don't have a traffic source, you don't really know where your traffic is coming from, you don't have a way to follow up with them. And, in that case, I would say focus, instead of creating a lead magnet, focus on driving leads to book a call with you or to some sort of diagnostic. So it's a little bit more immediate that you get something out of that relationship as opposed to, this long-term play. And then also, if you need cash fast, right? So if you're creating a campaign and you don't want to just gather a bunch of emails, you want to make money, then I would say that's another place to potentially run a direct response ad or campaign to a landing page with some sort of time-bound offer as opposed to, just a lead magnet. So there's a few different situations, but yeah, mainly if you have a front end and a back end, if you have traffic to get them there and then a way to follow up with them, I would create it. If not, then maybe work on that.
That's great. So how do you balance making something look good versus making it convert? Because there may be a difference. I know that I've struggled with things that maybe don't have that extra level of professionalism, but professionalism doesn't always translate into conversion. Sometimes something that's not very pretty is highly effective. So how would you balance those?
Yeah, that is a very interesting conundrum, I think, especially for designers. Designers really don't like this topic because designers really like to make things that are creative and fancy, right? But those don't always convert, right? So one of the things that I think is really interesting here is that, we've been told, or it's common knowledge, that it takes approximately 5 seconds to make a first impression. But recent studies just from this year show that that's actually completely wrong. It's 10 times faster, or maybe it's 100. It's 100 times faster than that. It takes 0.05 seconds to form a first impression, which sounds outrageous, but Google did a study earlier this year where they analyzed 19 different business websites, and they analyzed them for first impressions. And what they found was actually really surprising, is that any website that was more complex and creative actually created more cognitive load and made visitors feel like, this is too confusing. I don't want to look at this anymore. And websites that were more familiar, they created the opposite effect, right? So something that looked like what you expect to land on, or something that looks a little bit more familiar, maybe a little bit more plain, those tend to keep customers there. And most of us, we don't really think in milliseconds or 0.05 seconds. So I just jotted down a couple notes of how fast is 0.05 seconds actually, right? So that's as fast as a camera flash, right? You might say, I'll be back in a flash. Or it's faster than a single blink of your eyes, right? You might say the same thing, I'll be back in a blink. And that amount of time is actually the same amount of time that it takes a hummingbird to flap its wings just once. And so that really puts into perspective how quickly we make initial first impressions and first judgments. And just to kind of put this in a different light, it takes generally about a half a second to read a single word, but it takes 0.05 seconds to make your first impression. So that means that audiences feel something about your website and your online presence before they actually have a chance to read anything. And what's crazy is that the billion-dollar companies know this. Apple, Google, Airbnb, Disney, they all know this stuff, and they optimize for the feeling as opposed to, the initial, what is this? What's the information on the page, right? So I would say, now kind of getting into the more tactical, I would say if you were to try to apply, how to, like, some of these principles to make your website convert better, I would say that simple actually is better than more creative, right? So designs that feel more familiar and something like what you expect for a business of that type is going to be more appealing to viewers. Think of it kind of like this. Think of it like coming home, right? You always want to come home to a nice, comfy place, and it feels familiar, it feels comfortable. You can, do whatever you need to do at home, but you don't necessarily want your website to feel like a really flashy disco ball, right? Maybe it's fun for a little while. You'll go there and you'll go out and you'll say, oh, this is great. But then you leave after a few hours and you go back home to where it feels comfortable and familiar again, right? So you want your website to feel like coming home. You want it to be familiar, not this flashy place that, is exciting. That's kind of where I would say. So if we were to get down to real nitty gritty tacticals, I would say keep it to 2 fonts maximum. Use like a headline font and a body font. Have like 3 to 5 colors. Use professional photos and white space on your website so that it's visually easy to browse and to navigate. You'll see Apple, they're like the kings of this. And then just focus on like conversion drivers, like clear calls to action, headlines, include social proof near decision points. So for example, if you have a call to action, include a 5-star rating or whatever rating or a testimonial nearby that, so that as someone's making a decision, they can read into it and say, oh yeah, actually they like that. I'll buy this too. So there's a lot of different things to kind of look at. Generally, you want your website to just do one, or your web page. One web page has one goal. You don't want it to have a lot of different actions or calls to action. So the bottom line is, if the design fights the main goal, which is to create conversions or get new customers or get people to come through your door, then the design is losing. And you got to focus primarily on speed and familiarity.
That's great. Well, I'm so excited about, and you've got some special things that you're going to share with everybody. And if you want to put that link in the chat to that special offer, you've put together a special option for everybody that has watched this webinar live or watched the recording of it. So if you want to paste that link in the chat, I'm going to ask one more question that I'd love for you to answer, and then we'll get into the details of what you're offering. But the question is, if you could change one thing, just one, because we've talked about a lot, what's the one thing that people should be looking at evolving or optimizing on their website?
Yeah. So I would say look at your Google Analytics or whatever statistic tracker you have installed on your website, and look at what your most visited web page is. Maybe it's your homepage. Maybe it's your contact page, your about page, one of those pages. Figure out what the most visited page of your website is, and then focus on everything that's above the fold. Above the fold means before anybody scrolls down. That term comes from newspaper days when, there was a fold in the newspaper and you had to unfold the newspaper to read past the headline. It's similar here. So you want to have everything that's above the fold really clear, really simple to understand. You want to talk directly to your audience, call your audience out and say, hey, this is what we have to offer. This is the problem that we're trying to solve. This is the promise that we're making, and so everything in that kind of before anybody scrolls down. So David Ogilvy has it right. 80% of attention lives in the headline. So I would say if you could focus on just one thing, focus on your headline, because a lot of things actually get wrapped up into that, targeting your audience, your problem, the promise that you're making, all those things kind of live in the headline. And so if you can focus on that, optimize that, test that, do some A/B split tests, figure out which one is converting, which one's, not converting as well. And then just keep rolling forward with that. I would say focusing on the headline, but within that, that whole above the fold section, there's also the call to action and all that stuff, right? So you want to make that whole section very clear.
Right. Well, you've put together a nice special offer for everybody that's participated in this particular webinar. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit more about what they can receive if they take advantage of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So inside of this, if you click on this link, you'll be taken to a page where you can get this guide that we've created for you that is the same name as this webinar, From Click to Client. And essentially what it has inside is a lot of different tools and some information to help you better understand the tools that are available to convert more visitors on your website. So for example, whether or not you're using a lead magnet or a quiz or an AI chatbot, all those things are covered in there. There's also a few other tools like, pop-ups and sliders and various different things, right? So it covers different tools in different ways that you can convert more visitors into leads and customers on your website. So that's primarily what's inside of that document. And I've also created another quick little checklist. I'll go ahead and drop this here in the chat too, just because this is just a direct link to the checklist. This covers a lot of the things that we talked about today. That it's just a quick checklist of various different items. So for example, what should you focus on your above the fold? What should you focus on with your call to action? Are there conversion drivers on your website? Do you have a lead magnet? And if so, what's in there, right? So I've included a few different resources or a checklist here for you as well, from all the different things that we've talked about today. So hopefully this checklist will also help to improve your online presence.
Fantastic. Well, Josiah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for going through this. And thanks everybody for participating. The links will be sent back to the people that registered for the recording. And so we'll definitely post the links with the actual recording. So if you're watching this live, you should be able to click on the link and it'll give you all the details that you need to learn more about the services Josiah has talked about and about some of the strategies. So thanks, Josiah. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, David. It's really great to be here, and I appreciate the audience. Thanks so much to everybody for attending. It was really great.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Builders Playbook. If this episode gave you some plays that you can start running in your business today, hit subscribe and share with another revenue leader who's tired of the pipeline grind. Building predictable revenue isn't something you figure out alone. Whether you're looking to automate your prospecting with BDR.ai, or you just want to talk through the growth challenges you're facing, reach out. We help business leaders just like you to build systems that actually scale. And if you're ready to stop being your company's highest paid prospector, let's have a conversation. Reach out to us at BDR.ai. Until next time, let's keep building.